Welcome to the Flyers Nitty Gritty new podcast, Always Level Up. For those of you who are not aware, this is a new podcast about overcoming failure, perseverance, and general drive to success. If you're coming here for hockey, you're going to hear something a little different. But for episode 2, I'm very excited to announce Dennis Bermudez, Dennis the Menace, as they call them, former UFC fighter. Dennis, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining, buddy.
Thanks for having me, big dog.
Honestly, I'm pretty excited about this. For those who don't know, Dennis and I did go to college, so a little bit of background information. We both went to Bloomsburg University together. That's how I met Dennis. We haven't talked much over the years, but I have followed kind of what's happened. Obviously I saw the stories on, on social media and whatnot and the success. And I thought, this podcast would be perfect. So I'm excited to have you on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your background first, and then we'll dig into like the deeper questions. So your record as a fighter, 17-9-0. I think that's pretty impressive. Again, I'm not an expert on MMA in any sense, but that's very impressive to me. And I will go into it a little bit deeper, but I know a good amount of those losses came at the end too, right? They didn't come in the beginning. So you obviously had a rise up. How did that feel? How did it feel to kind of, even just the very beginning of just hit that peak to even get into the UFC?
It was a lot. I went through the Ultimate Fighter series, which makes me a reality TV star. If you wanna,
who isn't?
And that was an interesting circumstance. You're in a house. I think it was like 16 guys. 2 different teams. You're going to be fighting the guy that you live in the same house with. And I remember just getting in there and just kind of looking at it like a wrestling tournament. Like, let me show everyone kind of that I'm serious. I'm here for business. Like, usually I'm a goofy fucking clown, but I was like, I want to really let people know that I'm here for business, And I just stayed in this mindset, like tunnel vision, for the 6 weeks. No TV, no internet. You could bring literature, religious literature, but not you can't really bring books. It was
interesting.
Yeah.
You could only bring a Bible, essentially, or some form of Bible.
Whatever. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, to keep you, I guess, more focused on one track mind, right? Less distractions.
So one thing that I did in that to keep my mind kind of sharp is I would write down my goals and what I wanted to do. And I wasn't doing a journal. Some guys were doing journals and stuff like that, but I was just writing down anything to kind of pump me up, right? So there's been many of matches where a superior person to me that I felt gave me the look and went you know what you have to do here. And I was it would give me chills. So I actually one day I just wrote down everybody's name, whoever gave me that feeling in this book, just because almost you could just read the name and just remember those eyes that they gave you and them believing in you to.
I love that. So was it to support the reason you wrote it is kind of remind yourself of that feeling that drove you?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anybody.
And I was bored. But so I mean that's some things that I did, and I would write down just kind of passages or quotes that always kind of stuck in my head, just so I could look at them and get ready to rock and roll. So that's one thing I did in the house. And I was the a finale, was the runner-up of season 14 of The Ultimate Fighter. And then that in itself was a big driving force, was losing, that feeling, of losing the finale, and I was just this will never happen again. So my next fight, so that was December of 2011, I think. December 3rd was the finale. And then my next fight wasn't until May. So from December till May, I just worked out like a madman and just ate clean and just did all the right things because I was still unsure if I even belonged in the UFC. I didn't, because all these guys that were on the show with me, like, the winner's supposed to go in the UFC. Not everybody, but because it was a new weight class, they signed a lot of people. But I didn't know that, so I just trained my butt off, like from the finale of December 3rd, I think the next or 2 days later, I was in the gym, like working out really hard, and
that's so awesome.
Like, why are you here?
Well, it's interesting you say that because in hockey, not even just in hockey, in all sports, right? There's a draft, right? Players are drafted, and typically you think, oh, the guy in the first round gets drafted, but all throughout history, there's guys who've never been drafted, who get passed up, get drafted really late, who end up being star players or end up being NHL guys or, athletes. And it's like, just because you didn't get that one peak doesn't mean, like they recognize the work ethic in everybody, right? The potential was still there. So it's really interesting. It's almost like it was kind of your version of the draft in a weird way.
Well,
right?
I mean, going even further back, coming to Bloomsburg, I was a walk-on.
No way.
I earned my scholarship. Yeah.
That was D1, right? At Bloomsburg? Yeah.
I for me, it was either like go big or go home. So I walked in this wrestling room and everyone was like I could hold my own just because I was tough and I had good endurance and I was strong. But technically, I was getting kind of smoked,
Yeah.
And I just stuck in it just every day. And I would stay where, everyone for college would go home. I would stay and I would train.
That's badass.
So
let me ask you something. Were you a wrestler prior to that as well?
Yeah.
Like in high school? Okay.
Yeah.
So why were you?
Usually out of high school, like, you have accolades where you're a state champion or a state place finisher. I'd never gone to the state tournament. I was a 2-time runner-up. So when I was wrestling in high school, you had to win your section to go to states. The year after I graduated, they made like some kind of like weird point system where I would have went like 3 years in a row to the state tournament. But for me, you had to win it. And so losing the finale like took me right back to my high school days of like losing in the finale there. And I was like, man, like this fucking sucks, And another driving thing for me was I didn't do everything I wanted to do in high school, so then I wanted to do it in college. I didn't do everything I wanted to do in college. And then there was a period of time where I was like, man, that's it. I don't know if you know this. This is going to be some like awesome shit for your podcast.
All right.
I actually dropped out of Bloomsburg my senior year because I had a kid that turned out not to be mine.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I raised a kid for 2 years to find out that it wasn't mine. And that's when I started fighting.
Interesting. That is definitely unexpected. And especially, and this is actually kind of perfect, because this is the stuff I want to point out. Like, from what I know about your story, right, and the little I even know about you personally, like I know more than the average person, I would say.
Yeah. I
had no idea. And look at that roller coaster that you went on, which is really interesting. So wow, you hit me with a lot of stuff there. So hold on. Let's take a step back here. So you grew up in Long Island, right?
No, I grew up upstate New York.
Oh, upstate New York. Okay. Are you from Long Island, or did I miss?
Both my parents are from Long Island. They went upstate, had their kids, and then we would visit, relatives. And I'm like,
okay,
that was fucking cool.
Yeah. Okay. So gotcha. So New York area. Did you know you wanted to be a fighter? Is that like something? No.
I was like, I had watched fights. I'm like, dude, these guys are like.
What did you want to be? What did you want to be as a kid? Did you have like any idea?
I mean, as a kid, I wanted to be a football player. But then I realized by like 9th grade, like, you don't really have the genes. Like, not saying you can't do it, but it's like the genes just not really in the cards for you.
Interesting.
Interesting. But around the same time, I really fell in love with wrestling. So
that was in high school. You fell in love, or
yeah.
Okay.
Because my next door neighbor, who was like a huge role model to me and like a brotherly figure. I had an older brother, but this guy was like my brother when my brother was around. My brother, you know, at kind of a younger age, started like smoking pot and hanging out with, you know, drinking with his friends. And my neighbor across the street never did any drugs, never drank, but like worked out. Like he was a little guy, but he had like huge pecs. I'm like, dude, I want to be like that guy. You know, he was the captain of the wrestling team, and I would, in like third grade, I would go to his wrestling practices and run the hallways while the team was running, and I would be at all the events, you know. But like, I love my older brother. I think he's really cool, but I was like, I want to be like that guy. That guy's fucking jacked. He does crazy shit. Like, I like that.
Yeah. You like, is it you think it's the achievement portion of what he was doing, or did you literally like the battle element of like the fact that he was physically strong, or do you think you're like, hey, this guy,
like when you go on Facebook, you see like freak human doing crazy shit. Like he was doing that stuff in front of my eyes. Like, I'm not kidding.
Gotcha.
One arm fully out pull-ups, like coming over. Like, do you know how hard it is to come over the shoulder?
Yes, I do.
I get like this. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
I watched him do like not one all the way up, but two.
Wow.
And grab like doorways like this, like the and do pull-ups like that.
Do pull-ups. The fingers, grips. Yeah.
I'm like, and even to this day, I'm like, I was a number 6 professional fighter. I could, you know, and he was like a boy. He was like a boy back then, you know.
That's insane. That's actually an awesome thing to see, though, as a young person, right? Because like you're talking about the decision you made. Why did you decide to go instead of, I don't want to say the easy road, but like, you know, why didn't you go with your brother? And why is it that you chose something like that? Do you have any idea what drove you inside?
And my brother was doing cool stuff. He was like the captain of the football team and stuff like that. But like, he would lift here and there. Like this guy was like, he would wake up mad early, work out, and he just lived, ate, and breathed, and breathe.
Breathe, whatever.
Breathe, you know. And again, also like my brother was hanging with his friends. My neighbor across the street had a very small circle. He had like 3 buddies that liked exactly what he liked, like hunting, fishing, and wrestling. And like that was it. You know, so he kept a very small circle, and they were Native American. So like his father would make him like chop wood to heat the fucking the house, and they would go do powwows and stuff like that. So like they go out in the wood and find crotch to make slingshots and find little bows to make bow and arrows.
So he sounds incredibly disciplined at the same time, and it's almost like that's what was addicting, is like seeing somebody being able to focus on something and be that determined in a way.
Yeah, but I mean, at a young age, I just thought everything he did was so fucking cool.
Yes.
So I'm like, I want to be like you. Like he would build these huge swings. Like he would climb a tree like with no like equipment, where like if you fall, you die. Tie the rope and just like and build a platform where we'd run off and do these swings, and you know.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of things like rock climbing and stuff like that, where like we maybe didn't have equipment, and he'd be, like just kind of give me the look in the eye, like you got this, like yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was I took what he did in high school, and I like went like this. I was always competitive. So my older brother had a really fast mile time. So it was like I had to break my older brother's record. So he had like 5:05. So I got 4:59. Like, hey, Dean, you broke your record. You know, I'm just mic drop. And then like my next door neighbor, he had a really good wrestling record. So I like beat his record. And then I really love wrestling. So I went and ran with it. Realistically, the only reason I went to Bloomsburg was to wrestle. Like when people ask me, why'd you go to college? Like, to wrestle.
Yeah.
I didn't really. I mean, I don't know. I'm not doing anything with the degree I didn't get, but
I feel you. I mean, I transferred out of Bloomsburg too to Temple junior year, actually. But I think there's a lot to what you're saying, though, because you have a very competitive drive
Right.
within you. And I find most athletes are like that, especially ones that hit, again, the level that you're talking about, which is top tier performance, professional performance, getting paid, making it a lifestyle. Do you find that with the athletes that you've met along the way, the better ones were more competitive, more determined, more precise, maybe a little more regimented? Or do you think, it's kind of just a grab bag?
No, yeah. As I got to higher game of competition, yeah, guys became more competitive way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because in high school, I'd watch a guy lose and he'd be 2 seconds later, like laughing. Someone like, I don't get how. Like, because when I lost,
Felt it.
the world was like over. I remember one time at Bloomsburg, remember the field house?
Yep, of course.
I lost to this guy, like he kicked my ass, but he started beating me early, and then I started getting like angry. I never really get angry. I started getting fucking pissed and like trying to like slam the guy and shit like that. And the anger like started fucking with my technique and like what I was even doing. And so it just made him easier to score points. And he like almost tech falled me. After the match, I ran out the back doors of the field house with my singlet down. And I started just running around the field house. And then in the winter, like right now. And a few people drove by and like, what the fuck is this like little Puerto Rican doing? Like with no shirt on. I'm probably crying, shirt down, my wrestling shoes, just like, yeah, that'll never happen again. Like losing my mind, and I don't know how everybody's different, so I have 2 boys now, and my little guy, when he loses, like goes fucking, he like loses it. I'm like, I don't know if I like that yet. Only because he loses, cries, and then runs to his room. It's not like he loses and starts banging out push-ups.
Right.
So,
and I think that's key. And I do want to get into this even more. I want to go back to what you were saying earlier, but
sorry, I've been all over the place this whole.
Well, no, it's okay. But the response to failure, right? That's what you're looking for. The response to losing, because everybody loses, right? And everybody loses at some point, even if you're the best. Like, they obviously use the Michael Jordan example, but I mean, he didn't even make his high school team. What did Michael Jordan do? The story is very similar to what you said, right? That you did. It was determination. He went and practiced. He put that anger and that energy towards achieving that goal, and obviously made it happen. So let me ask you this question. And
so hang on. Let's
go ahead.
A little better.
No,
I've been
please.
all over the place.
No.
We can go to like my dad and my like neighbor. How that they have like there was like a yin and yang there. Like nothing I did was like good enough for my father. And then to this guy I looked up to, me and him had a common like, you could do better, or like, listen, man, get your head up. It's fine. There's that. There's college. My whole roller coaster with college.
Sure.
Then there's becoming a dad.
Well,
yeah, a fake dad.
I want to ask you about that too.
Then there's the ultimate fight. Well, fighting just in general.
Yeah.
The ultimate fighter, and then my run I had. So it's like 5-7 things. Yeah,
there's a lot. Well, and this is what I kind of wanted to start with this and then dig into that stuff. Actually, I was going to ask you this kind of simple question because, quite frankly, you're a fighter, right? Yeah. Like it's in you, it's in your nature to some degree, right? And maybe for somebody like myself, it comes out in different ways. I'm not technically proficient in fighting in any ways, but my name literally means the fighter in Hebrew. It's definitely my personality. What's a fight worth having? What's a fight that you feel is worth battling for? How do you pick your battles?
One thing that just speaking wise is like, let's say someone was like, Dennis, you're weak. Like, okay, sick. Because I know I'm not weak.
Right.
Say whatever you want. It's when someone says something false about me that I could see how they could see it. That like
almost like they're trying to bend your reality in a way. You know what I mean? Like
that,
you're looking at red and they're like, no, it's blue.
Everybody lies, right?
Yes.
And obviously there's different degrees of lies, right?
Sure.
But let's say I'm saying white lies so someone's feeling doesn't hurt. They get the real truth and it's, you're a liar. It's like, whoa, I'm not a fucking liar. Like,
right.
Like something like that.
So is that typically what fires you up the most, is kind of like when your view of yourself doesn't align with this person or this end goal? Because it sounds like that is kind of there, right? To some degree.
I mean, so 50% of why I even started fighting in the first place was to get girls.
It's a pretty good reason though. And probably pretty effective, at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know,
like if a girl watched you and it's totally legal and they saw you get paid doing it, beat up another guy, you're like the sexiest, and like you look appealing like the slightest.
I would
and
imagine.
After you finish the fight, you're like mojo is there's nothing. You're like a phoenix. You can't be stopped.
Tell me about that, actually. Dig into that a little bit more. How you feel after a win. I love that. Like a phoenix, like you can't be stopped. Is it like it's like a high in energy, a peak level of confidence, you would say?
Yeah, and it's wild. It just like wrestling. The more you won, the more used you got to it. You got used to winning. So it didn't, I guess it'd be kind of like, what do they say, chasing the dragon?
Yeah.
The first win is much more than the rest. I mean, I'm sure it'd be different if I won a title.
Sure.
Maybe that's like the Phoenix over again.
Right. But again, you're chasing a higher peak, right? You're winning a title is not just winning a match, right?
Right.
So do you think you're driven by that feeling mostly at this point?
It started becoming, well, that's how it's supposed to go.
Interesting.
So a loss would hurt way, way, way more than a win would feel good.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you next, actually. The loss. The losing.
Yeah, everything stopped.
Everything stopped.
I'm like this very bubbly, funny, goofy guy. And when I lost, you would think I was possessed by a demon. Yelling, like I would never punch shit because I've watched people punch it and like break their hands. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, when in my like anger and rage, if you will, of a defeat, I'm still conscious of what's going on.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
You definitely see me like, yeah, you're like, that definitely hurt your hand. I don't care what the fuck you say. Like, or I would hit things that I definitely knew would give. A garbage can, like the inside of a locker, it's like a thin metal, about it. But you still didn't like. But yeah, that's but again, like after losses that I could instantly train, I would go back to the locker room when I trained.
Interesting. What did you do?
Get the mitts. Let's go rounds. I want to keep going, and I'd be like crying. They're like, okay.
So no resting. That was your immediate response. Is that what you did after the first loss?
Yeah.
Yeah, just immediately back into training. No recovery. Did it hurt you?
Again, as I got further into fighting, I was, like bro, you can't just keep burning this candle. You gotta blow it out once in a while and kind of reset.
That's perfect, actually. So because obviously you had 9 losses, right? 17 wins, 9 losses. I think all were decision, right? I don't think you had a knockout, and I don't think you were knocked out.
So I lost. So let me touch on that record a little.
Sure, yeah, please.
It sounds to me that sounds awful.
Really, I don't know enough about MMA. To me, that sounds.
No, to me. I just,
to me, it sounds amazing. I'm like, dude, you beat up 17 professional fighters. I was like, incredible.
There's 3 fights in the Ultimate Fighter that they don't include on my record because they say it wasn't because
ranked.
of the exhibition, I guess.
Okay.
But I'm like, fuck that. I fought professional athletes.
Yes. The pain was real. They wanted to win.
And I finished them. So the reason why it's not considered a real fight is because it's 2 rounds. So if I'm fighting you, I win the first round, second round. There's no need for a third round. I win.
Gotcha.
If you win a round, I win a round, we go to the third round. So that's why it's not a real fight. There's still 5 minutes. But I finished everybody in the show inside 2 rounds. So it didn't matter, Mm-hmm. But so that's 3. So that's like 20. So now 20-9. That sounds better than 17-9. And then the last 4 losses I had, I got flash knocked down by the Korean Zombie Super Bowl weekend in Houston. Like this was like my Dennis, here we go. You could become a star. Win this one. You could become a star. I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I got flash knocked down. And I remember getting up and looking at the ref like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And he stopped it. I'm like, bro, really? He's like, sorry. I'm like, you fuck. And so you can sit in that moment and be like, I didn't lose. That's just bullshit. Or bro, it is what it is. Just get ready for the next one. Right. So then I have my next fight against Darren Elkins in my hometown, Long Island. And I lose the decision. So his name starts with a D, my name starts with a D, Dennis and Darren, right? So close. It was a close fight. I will give them that. But they started saying D. Everyone started going nuts. Like, Darren! And people were like, what? Boo! And they started booing. And I was like, fuck. And so there was an after party, because there's 4 Long Island fighters that night. There was an after party, and I was like, I deserve it. I went to a bar near my house by myself. I don't deserve to be around everybody. And people tell me dude, don't keep your head up. I'm like, I don't deserve that. So, and then another one, I was supposed to go boar hunting out of a helicopter in Texas after the Korean Zombie fight.
Okay.
And I lost. I'm like, I don't deserve it. I'm not gonna. It was all paid for. I didn't have to pay a cent. But I was like, I can't give myself that. It's okay when.
No, I know exactly. I mean, obviously, I don't have the same type of loss or anything, but anytime something like that has happened in my life where I feel like I've come short or I didn't meet up to expectations, I usually punish myself.
Yeah.
In certain ways, and it sounds like you're not obviously you don't really want to punish yourself, but you're more of that. That's not. It's not gonna the wine's not gonna taste good.
Right.
It's not going to taste sweet. You're going to be I'm just going to be bitter about what I'm going to go to this party and look upset in front of all these happy people.
Yes. What nice job.
Yeah. How did you?
I'm not done. So I lost.
No, go ahead. Good, please.
So now I'm down 2. Usually UFC cuts you after 3 losses.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going through this next fight against.
So you think you're going to be? You think you're going to be cut, or you potentially could be cut?
Usually, looking at the history of UFC, if you lose 3 in a row, it's been nice knowing you.
Right, and you've already lost 2.
Look to work somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I go in this 3rd fight against Andre Felix. Now there's a lot of pressure. If I lose this fight, I might lose my job. And I'm pushing the other losses behind me, and I might have been working with a mental coach a little bit.
Sure.
And he was saying how if if you have a bag of coins and someone tries to come steal those coins, you won't be able to defend that guy away from those coins unless you drop those coins. So those coins representing your losses. You won't be able to win your next unless you forget about those coins.
Ain't that the truth?
I was like, huh, okay. So I go in this fight, and we had a couple close rounds, and just like the previous fight, the third round, I blew him out of the fucking water. Blew him the fuck out of the water. And listen, I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I'm still like pissed about it because I outstruck him by like 60 punches. But here's the kicker: like he took me down like 4 times, like where I touched my butt and got up, and they counted that as a takedown. And I guess like I still try to rationalize. I guess because I'm the wrestler and I was supposed to be taking him down. It counted for like double. I don't know. So the third round, I absolutely crushed him, and I'll show you the stats if you want in the future.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But one of the judges gave him that round. I was like, if there's any round I definitely won, it was that one. And they had it mixed up in the beginning, and then one judge, which gave him the fight. I was like, dude, what the? So then I'm like, this is not good.
Feels like the world's against you almost.
So now I've lost 3 times in a row. I'm like, I don't even know if I can win. Like, this is. So then I go and I fight.
What was your? I'm sorry to cut you off. What was your record at the time? I assume you had wins behind you at this point, right?
No, those. Yes. I went on a 7-fight win streak at one point.
I remember seeing that a few years ago.
Where people were like, dude, this guy could be fighting for a title.
I remember hearing about you on Rogan, actually.
Yeah.
Your name.
Yeah. So then I fought this guy. He has 2 first names. He can't be trusted. I don't know. In Idaho. And so then I did the opposite of kind of what I did there. So I outstruck the first guy. He got more takedowns. I'm like, all right, this fight, I will definitely take this guy down way more than he takes. Like I will. So I took him down 6 times, and he outstruck me by 4 punches, and he won. And I was like, I don't get it. And so, and going into that fight, I'm like, if I lose this fight, it's not going to be you're fired, but I quit. You know?
Yeah.
And that's just like these when you go to fight another man, you train to fight another man, wild things will go through your head.
Interesting.
Like, especially the sport where,
to motivate you?
Well, the thing is you'll first get the fight, you'll be like, I'm going to crush this guy. Then you start training, maybe you have a couple bad days, and you're like, well, if this guy's doing this to me, and my opponent would do this to that guy, you start these all while you're cutting weight, and it's a big, big mind fuck, And I would tell people that before I go to fight, like, how do you prepare? I just mind fuck myself that I am the baddest motherfucker in the world and I cannot be touched. And that I'm okay with death tonight. If this guy kills me, I'm cool with it. And if you're okay with dying, what's a punch in the face?
That's a mind of a fighter. Because I was actually going to ask you that. That's a perfect segue. I was going to ask you what it takes to get up for something like that. Like in hockey, and again, a lot of people watching this will be hockey fans, right? But in hockey, there is fighting, right? To some degree, It's not like you're fighting, but you have to, in hockey, you have to be intimidating to some degree. Yeah. They're coming at you, mouth, physically, everything. How do you get up for that? Is that really the essence of it? You just focus on yourself? Like, how do you get up to battle? Because you're not just going in there to do your job. You're doing your job in front of everybody, and you're also going to get punched in the face and probably much worse. A
lot of things. So kind of like I said, like become okay with death walking out there. I also had this thing like, even though it's not real at all, like I look at my corner, my guys that are giving me those look like the nod before I go in. Like if all three of them can fuck up everybody over there, like that fighter, like if we were going to do a gang fight, like it's my gang, like
Yes.
like that gets me going too.
Interesting. So your team,
I
your
become
actual
a little
team.
bit religious. I am like, I believe in God and everything like that, but like I don't go to church on Sunday.
Okay.
But come fight night, I make a call to a guy because it happened on the show. Is the two guys I was roomed with were like big Christians, and they would pray, and I'd ask them questions, and they would pray before my fights in the Ultimate Fighter. So I just kept that ball rolling, even though we were out of there. I would call them, and they would do a prayer, and I'd have my corners, and we would like. That's nice. I mean, because the thing is I just did a lot of things like couldn't hurt. And then you just kind of, as you're preparing, is like everything that's going to happen tonight is already predetermined. You're just going in there autopilot.
Is that how you feel going into the fight? Like what's going to happen is already going to happen to some degree?
It's a way to relieve pressure.
Oh, I like that.
In that, like, God's already decided who's going to win this. You just got to just walk out there, and whatever's going to happen is already it's going to happen.
So what happens when that moment happens where you think you won, right? Because it's not like hockey, right? Where you score a goal, you scored the goal.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. This is a little more subjective, right? And there's nuance in the scoring. You obviously have trouble kind of, I don't want to say you have trouble with it, but you obviously think back on it. Like any loss, right? You obviously think back on it. How do you cope with that and not let it affect the way you're going to work with the next judge? Like, are you worried about it in your next fights? Like, hey, are they going to misjudge me anyway? Did that make you
after the Idaho fight, right?
Yeah.
That was my fourth loss in a row. So I'm like, so I went over. Remember I told you prior going to fight, I said, yo, it's not, I'm fired. I quit. So I told myself, I lose this fight to this fucking clown, I'm retiring right then and there. So they lost. And there's some like gut wrenching moments. So like in my corner, like we're in that third round, I was in on a leg, and my corner was like, Dennis, get this takedown, you win this fight. And I remember just digging deep and just like sucking him in and getting takedown. And like after the fight, like my guy comes in and gives me like, you did it, like you won this fight. And then when it went the other way, I looked at him like,
what happened?
What? Like I thought you said, and he was just like, kind of like gave me a hug and brought me his chest, just like, I don't fucking tell you, dude, this is bullshit, And I looked at him and I was crying. I'm like, dude, I'm fucking done with this shit. I'm not doing this shit anymore. This is bullshit. Because I have two kids. All four of these fights, I have two kids. Right. And so for these fights, I was getting $50,000 to fight, $50,000 to win. So I went from making potentially $300,000 to $150,000 because some fucking jerk off who never fought is like, him.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, this is bullshit. I would rather be doing something that if I put in the time and work, I know I'm being compensated for that.
Absolutely. And also the cost of obviously your physical body. There's obviously overhead with training, food, diet, time spent. If you're losing 50% of your expected revenue right off the bat, it's definitely tough to position in. So now you got your body pain, and then you got your financial pain as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. I mean, there were one or two of those fights where I was like, "Hey, Doc, my manager, like, we need a fight. Oh, you want to fight again?" I'm like, I don't really want to fight, but I need money.
Sure. Because
the last 50 grand, and it's 50 grand, then you pay taxes on it. You pay your trainers, you're paying for hotel, their flights, the training, equipment. It's $50,000 after everything's said and done. It's probably like 25.
Right. after
maybe.
cost and taxes. And it also, it's not like you can go and just have as many fights as you want a year. You need recovery time. You need to physically,
Right.
if
So after a
lose.
fight, they give you like a probation, if you will,
Okay.
until you see a doctor and a doctor clears you.
Okay. Have you ever had, do you have anything lingering? You have anything that's still?
From training, I like hyperextended my elbow really bad, getting
Mm,
ready for a fight before the finale. I actually almost didn't fight in the finale because my elbow was like this big and black and blue, like 3 weeks out. And I was just going to a physical therapist every day, and he was like massaging it and rubbing it out, and then I was gonna get a cortisone shot before the finale, but the guy was like, there's like a 30% chance it could go the opposite way, where you'll be in excruciating pain and you will not be able to fight. So we're like, well, we can fight now. Just hurts a little bit, and that's the arm, like an arm barred in the finale too.
Man.
um,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Please finish.
no, but yeah. So then that happened, and I was like, dude. So I had like kind of sat home for like 2 months, just kind of like, I'm not fighting anymore. I just stopped training, just started. And then I was living with a girlfriend at the time, and I just kind of like being crazy was just like, you don't do shit around here, huh? Just like started fights with her and shit like that. And
Oh,
just
interesting.
Like,
without purpose. You felt like you
well,
didn't
no,
have
just
purpose.
because I was home all the time because I wasn't training because I was tired. I started like nitpicking at her. I was probably just pissed off at myself.
Yes.
You know, so then we broke up.
Sorry.
And then I was like hurting. I was like, fuck.
Yep.
So now you're like, Doc, what's up? I'm like, I need a fight. Someone needs to get fucked.
It's like a movie.
And he was like, all right. So like a week later, like, all right, dude, you got to fight in 2 weeks. Like, all right. I won my last fight in Brooklyn, which was kind of cool. And I retired then, made like an official retirement.
Yep, I did.
Because when I retired the first time, I didn't tell anybody. I just looked at my phone like, fuck this, I'm done.
Yeah.
I didn't tell anybody, you know.
I watched a little bit. For anybody who's listening, you can go and watch it on YouTube. You can watch his final fight and your I guess your interview afterwards. Definitely worth watching and interesting to see. And I think ultimately, I think you made the right decision. I can't convince anybody to go beat their body up again, but I truly loved what you said, and just the idea of going out down about something that truly, I believe when you look back in your life, was really an amazing thing and an incredible experience that most humans will never get. And to end it on that positive note, on a win, I think that'll last you much longer than anything else, right? To battle back, because that's what you did. And I do want to ask you, the personal question there. I know you were, obviously, I think you were going through stuff with your uncle. I believe he had leukemia. I actually lost my dad to leukemia about 3 years ago as well. So I kind of, I understand what it's like to have that feeling. And, I heard you talk about your kids at the time, right? And you're talking about you're losing your uncle. Did you feel like you were fighting for your family at the time? Because it's kind of sounding.
Yeah, because I knew, at the time my uncle was in bad shape. He's passed away since, but at the time he was in bad shape, and I just wanted to give him something to look at and be like, you know what? Like, fuck this shit. Like, I got this.
Yeah.
Like, I can do this. And then like with my kids too, I want them to look back and like, because my kids still like, so they watch Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Man, imagine you did like that, Dad. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, dude, you could not beat that guy up. I'm like, yes, I could. They're like, Dad, stop. I'm like, you guys, this is not. It hasn't even clicked in your guys' little heads, like how badass your dad is.
That's funny. Well, I guess they're probably too young to really put in perspective what you were actually doing. They see stuff on TV because I think they were, if I heard from the interview, it was like 4 and 6 or something like that at the time.
Yeah, because they're 6. No, they're 5 and 7.
Okay.
Yeah, they're about to be, so maybe 3 and 5.
Okay.
But it's funny because my little guy, they're like in like Lamborghinis and Ferraris now. Like there's a thing like, well, maybe my first car, I'd be like, I'm like, okay. But like, Dad, when you were rich, because they knew I was in the UFC. Dad, when you were rich, could you brought Lambo? I was like, no, son. They thought just because I fought like professionally that I was rich at one point.
Well, but honestly, that's kind of why I wanted to, and this is not obviously not a knock on anything financial, but this is kind of what I wanted people to see from a lot of this stuff. I mean, obviously I was with Lisa Ann in the first episode. I was hanging out actually with Dave Chappelle and his friends. Yeah, just doing stupid stuff. My sister makes friends with celebrities somehow, and then I make friends with them. And I've met a good amount, and they're normal. You're human beings, and that's what I want people to see about athletes is that you're a very normal human being. You know, the stuff that you're going through, yes, you deal with them in different ways. It's a different context, but everybody deals through failure. And I love what you were saying about, you know, this peak expectation, you come in winning, and then all of a sudden you lose 3 in a row. You think you're up against the wall. You know, you quit yourself and then kind of yeah, man. Or 4 in a row. Yeah. So how did that feel to go from, you know, high in the sky to feeling like, you know, I just lost 4? Is that what made you want to drive to finish on a high note? Also to be like, I started this on a high note. Like, let me end this.
Well, I mean, if I'm being honest, like breaking up my girlfriend, I just had this like,
ain't that the truth, huh?
This anger and this wasted energy, really. That I was like, man, I could just put this somewhere.
Physically, you wanted to do something about it, but you can't, right? There's nothing you can really do about it.
So when you're upset, I mean, like when I lost my uncle, I probably ran like 30 miles that week.
There you go.
And one thing so an emotion definitely takes energy.
Yeah.
If you're too tired to feel anything, you know, so I would just like my uncle, when my uncle passed away, I ran like 5 miles a day, 6 miles a day for like 4 days. You know, I just would think about him, I just run and just cry here and there and just dig harder, you know. And then like the harder you dig, you can't be upset, you know. Yeah. Your body's too worried about getting air in your lungs.
It's so funny you say that because I say the same thing. I obviously I don't train for any reason outside of vanity and my health, but I definitely run. I started running as well. I run like 3.5 miles when I run. Lift every day. There's nothing that makes me feel better than that. Getting out of your brain and into your body, right? Get out of the thoughts in your head. Get into the present moment. Running, will let you do that, will allow you to think about your breathing rather than your uncle, even for little bits of second, right? When it eats your mind. So like going, because you touched on Joe Rogan. I heard on Joe Rogan kind of like human beings going back, because I'm an anthropology major over there at Bloomsburg. I love anthropology. But human beings we're like built to be stressed. Yes. And like when you look at your housewives of New Jersey or whatever, right? You see all the drama and because those chicks don't work out. So your body will make things stressful naturally. Yes. Like if thing doesn't go, like my ex-girlfriend, I just feel like we could have been millionaires and had everything. She would still find something that just, no, but I don't like that. Interesting. Did she exercise? I don't have time. Like that was like another problem, But but I just think if you just stress your body, and it doesn't have to be through exercise. It could be through like breath holds. It could be through cold therapy, hot exposure, heat exposure. There are so many ways, or even like almost the opposite, meditation, where you could take yourself, like relieve like tension or stress for 20 minutes, and then a lot of people just want to eat cheeseburgers. Do you find yeah, no, I hear you, man. Do you find that those peak moments, do they still haunt you at times in your life?
Yeah, because I now I work a normal job. I work. I'm a lineman for PSEG, and like when I walk into a gym or I walk into a UFC event, like holy shit, it's that, like can I have your autograph? And then I'm at work and like, kid, go get that wire. Like, okay, like, and I'm actually, I hate it, but I'm like a hater of other sports. Because if I was the sixth best wide receiver in the NFL,
yeah, I know,
I would be sad.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, I'd probably be sitting next to you, like, yeah, this is because I flew there, whatever. Yes. Or I'd be like, I gotta go to work in like 15 minutes.
And if you think about it, yours were all decision based too. It's not like you got knocked out on TV like McGregor the other day, right? It's like,
right, yeah,
it's like a hair this
somebody
way.
That probably wasn't paying attention was just like, yeah, I like this guy.
So let's look at the future here. We're getting close to the end here. So let's look at the future. You're 34, I believe, right?
Yes.
And that's still really young. And while, fighting career, it's not young because your body starts to wear and tear, especially after getting, in fights. What do you plan on doing, like moving forward? Do you have a plan? Do you have a future to diversify your skill set, which quite frankly is probably more diverse than most people even realize, considering the various experiences that you had along the way? And maybe you're doing what you do now and it doesn't feel like that, but it's just like the beginning of training, right? You just started training. Who knows what kind of fighter you're going to be by the end, right? So what kind of projection do you see yourself? What's the next step? Do you have one?
So I had a few goals that kind of got away from me. I'm like, I gotta get those back. So one is I want to run from Farmingdale to Montauk, which is like 88 miles. And I haven't done any training at all, but like I gotta start somewhere and do something. But like, and I want to do it. I mean, in my head, I was gonna try and do it before 35. Might be a little later, but at one point, I want to do it. Just because, like when I drive out with my kids, like, your old man, he ran this whole thing. Just throwing it out there, just in case you wanted, no. And I just think it'd be cool, maybe do like a charity out of it and something like that. And it could be, something to hang my hat, like another thing to like do that. Because I also, you see that right there, that's a Guinness Book of World Record.
I saw a video about it, but I wasn't sure what it was. What's the record that you hold?
The fastest time to drink a liter of lemon juice with a straw is 22.75 seconds and was achieved by Dennis Bermudez in New York, USA on 17 May 2006.
It's pretty impressive. I didn't know that was even
that's another competitive thing. We can talk about that later. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So with work, this is like a new chapter's opened up, right? So I've always had free the whole day to do whatever I want. And I would squeeze in 2 to 3 hours a day to either train, recover, or something to make me cook, whatever. So now that I'm working like 40 plus hours a week, it's like, whoa, I don't have time to do shit, And then, so I'm still pretty fat, but I got fat and I was like, dude, enough's enough. And so I started waking up at like 4:30 in the morning to lift. And my main reason behind it was because so many people said they can't.
Yeah.
How many people were like, yo, why don't you work out? I don't have time.
Right.
Well, why don't you get up early? Nah, I'm a morning person. I can't. That's always been my when I get up, the reason why I can is because so many can't.
I love that.
I'm not a pussy. And then Thanksgiving hit, and I was like, it's Thanksgiving this week, so I took the week off, and I never went back. So then I'm like, man, working out to just be fit isn't enough motivation for me. You know, I have a girl. If I was single, maybe it'd be different. Like, whoa, I gotta look good for the ladies. But I have a girlfriend, and like, you know, she thinks I'm good looking. So I'm like, all right. So now I've run, you know, I'd spent a lot of time thinking about this. I need to do something else to get myself in shape or to want to work out. And I've assessed that training is it, competition. When we talk about how competitive I am. So I just bought 2 gis, and I know jiu-jitsu, but I'm a white belt. No, like white, 1 stripe. I've never actually wore the gi. I know no gi. So I'm gonna like hit this. So I'm doing primary school for work. And once I'm done with that, I'm like done with school like forever. Oh. So if I were to let's say I were to get hurt, I wouldn't be like held back or screwed at work at all. So because that's been like a little bit of my like.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
I'm not gonna like compete or just because if I get hurt, then I'm fucked at work.
Yeah.
You know, and training isn't paying my bills anymore. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna get back into jiu-jitsu and try to become a world champion.
I love that. Do you have any plans of teaching martial arts or anything like that? Or
I was teaching boxing at the gym I used to train at while I was at work, and I was just like, man, this is becoming like, because I already don't have that much time to myself, so now I have to take another hour out of the time I do have myself and like give it to other people, and I'm totally okay with that. The thing is, I wasn't getting like people were either getting into a different class or they weren't staying in class long enough because I would teach people stuff. And I had to keep teaching the same thing because it was like new people were coming in and other people were leaving. So it was like, I'm not actually building anybody to become an actual killer. I'm just showing a bunch of people like the first few steps to boxing.
Do you think you'd ever be involved in a team for somebody who was a UFC fighter?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. It would just be a little bit tough with work because keep the electric on now.
Yeah.
So for example, we were supposed to do the podcast yesterday.
Sure.
But we got a humongous snowstorm. And so after I'm done here, I'm gonna go do a private with the owner of GFuel. I don't know what GFuel is.
No, you know I don't. What is it? Pre-workout?
It's actually it's like a caffeinated drink, but they're like marketed towards gamers.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. You're a gamer as well?
I try.
No.
This is GFuel right here.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say. I thought that what was behind you. Is that your sponsorship? Or
they used to sponsor me when I was fighting. But if I'm like, yo, hook me up, they'll tell me a bunch of stuff, or we can make packages for people and shit like that. You know,
that's interesting.
They sponsor the show a little bit.
Yeah. So you wouldn't say at this point you have like a 5, even 10-year plan at this point.
I mean, make a whole bunch of money at work. I would imagine in 10 years I could be like a Masters world champion because there's age limits.
In my mind, I'm kind of like thinking, I'm like, everything you're saying is pretty profound and pretty mature, to be honest with you, whether, you put a joking inflection on it or not, right? The essence of it is all true. And I think about 34 years old, typically, from what I notice in professional sports, a lot of the guys who end up being the best coaches, the best general managers, the guys who manage fighters or sport athletes, the best, tend to not always be like the champion guy. They tend to be the hardest working guy, the guy who understood systems, right? That it's those people tend to be the ones that help grow the sport beyond that. It seems to me like your mindset and everything you're saying, and again, I am not part of that world, so I'm making a bunch of assumptions, but it does sound like you have a future in that type of leadership role in that world. Whether you're going to do it or not, I'm sure it's completely up to you, and whether it's available or not is completely different. But it does seem like you do have the mindset for it. I mean, I don't want to tell you what to do, but it does sound like an interesting.
Yeah. Well, the
course of
guys in the
action.
gym are always like, "Ew, come back and help out with sparring." I'm like, "Yeah, but I just got home."
Yeah. Well, it's like recovery. That's what I mean. I think you're. I really like what you're doing because you're. For those who are not aware, he has a YouTube channel as well, Dennis and the Menace, I believe, or what's
just Menace Tube.
Menace Tube.
My podcast is Menace and the Man.
Menace and the Man. Thank you very much. We'll give that a shout out at the end.
We're the man show of MMA. So we drink beer sometimes. I'm actually cutting back because I got to lose weight, like I talked to you about.
Yeah.
Just drink water, but we talk about like relationship. We're trying to be the young man's guide. So remember the man show?
Proving my point.
Beer, hula, oh boy,
yeah.
boy.
Yeah, of
like
course.
That of MMA.
Yes. I love that. And honestly, and I saw you have a few thousand subscribers, which I think is awesome. And obviously you have the brand and people recognize you from UFC. But like even what I just said, right? Your podcast kind of has some of that already. And you even talk about like relationship stuff because that is in that world as well. And I think about that stuff because you're a fighter, right? You got to think about fighting. What happens when something comes in and rocks your world that's not fighting related, right? Like I feel like the stuff that you've been in through your life, like finding out you have a kid that's not yours, these are things that can, honestly, you see some people living on the street. And obviously not just because of that one thing, but things in life can rock people. And I think you tend to have a pretty good understanding of how to battle that. And you put the proper action behind it. I think it's very valuable. Yeah.
I mean, I would just write shit down or
Yeah. Well, the podcast is a great way to do that and spread that word.
Yes.
All right. So we're at the hour here. One more time, where can people follow you? What are you working on? Just any kind of shout out for anything at all that you'd like to tell our followers.
Yeah, I got my own little podcast. So if you like laughing and fighting, we're your guys. Perfect. Me and my fat buddy Stan the Man. We're called the Menace and the Man Show. I'm the Menace, and his name is Stan, so came up with the Man.
Sure, I love
it. Yeah, we interview like high-end fighters. Like we had Gilbert Burns on multiple times. He's fighting for a world title. We've had the guy he's fighting on that has a world title.
Oh, that's sick.
Because people recognize real. Like,
yeah, absolutely. That's
why I'm here. And then, on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, at Dennis Bermudez, because my name is Dennis Bermudez, but my fight name is Menace. See what I did there?
Yeah, that's clever.
Yeah, I got the Facebook pages and such.
Awesome.
Dennis Bermudez. But yeah, I'm trying to blow up, act like I don't know nobody.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I'll put the link to your show in. I'll post an article. So our articles usually make it to Bleacher Report. So I'll have your link in there, and then I'll put in the details of the YouTube. Right. But this was awesome. This was perfect. This is exactly what I was hoping for.
I feel like we gotta do an episode too, because we touched on a lot. We touched on a lot of little things.
100% down. Dude, okay. You got it. We'll definitely do an episode too. Honestly,
what I need you to do though.
Okay. I
need you to go through and see where I started a lot of things and just like note here, we need to finish that.
Finish that. Well, that's the problem with podcasts, right? I want to be Joe Rogan and go for 3 hours, but the reality is not everybody's gonna listen for 3 hours. Yeah. So I try to do an hour. Even now, like majority of content that does the best is like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Which my favorite.
We're an animal. So my buddy Stan, we just can't help it. We'll talk for like 3 hours with whomever. Like we'll tell like
that's why I like it.
Hey dude, you gotta train. Like, yeah, we'll just take you 15 minutes, like 45 minutes. Like, so do you can stay if you want, but we got another guest coming on. You know? And then my buddy has to edit it all. I'm like, good luck, dude.
Well, that's the thing. I don't have an editor too, and that would be I have to edit everything myself, so it's a little longer. But this was perfect, and I will definitely have you on for another episode.
You want to have me and Mrs. Anna, and we'll chop it up with you.
Okay, yeah, no problem. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for everybody for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed the second show. There are 2 more episodes already lined up. I don't want to name any names just in case something goes wrong. But I will get those out as soon as possible. Like and subscribe for sure. And definitely make sure to continue to check out all the flyer stuff at Flyers Nitty Gritty. Remember to always stay gritty. Oh, do you want to say one more thing?
One more thing. So you said Dennis, you were following me after college. I've been following you too, dude. That hair. I've been following that hairdo since the college days.
Thanks, buddy. I'll give a shout out to my barber. His name's Sean Michael in the area. I honestly, blow dryer. Use a blow dryer. I would recommend everybody use a blow dryer. Yeah, don't let your hair naturally dry. It's how I avoid putting anything in it. Like that's really
my barber he'll blow dry my front up for like a nice. I could do it. I just don't.
It's like the other thing. I can't. Right? It's like I could, but I can't. Right? It's like
I feel like the man in me for some reason. Even though when he does it, I'm like, he looks sick.
Yeah.
Well,
but think about it this way: there's always an occasion where you can whip out a blow dryer for time you got to wear a suit, look a little extra.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah. I'll shoot you some hints later on.
I like it.
All right. And again, thank you for everybody for listening. Remember to always stay gritty, and remember definitely to always level up.